The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. Here I am back after suffering a week of the dreaded COVID. My God, what a disease. I'll tell you something, it just wiped me. And my wife and I had all our shots. Makes me sound like a dog, doesn't it? We've had all our shots, rabies included. No, it was horrific. And I can only imagine what it was like for those people who did not get the 3 or 4 or 5 vaccinations with boosters, and how they suffered through this horrific disease. And now I was watching the news earlier tonight that there's they're calling it a trifecta, COVID. What is it? The COVID, the flu, and something else, respiratory disease that is hitting children and young people really hard. So it doesn't look like we're out of the woods yet, Exo Nation, but I'm really glad to be back here with you. Wow, I missed you guys. I really did. A week away from the control center here. Yes, Craig, I even missed you. I didn't miss your badgering, your bantering, but I did miss you, buddy. What a show we have lined up for you tonight, Exo Nation. It's a 3-hour special because of the provincial elections here in the province of Ontario from 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock. They are doing a repeat of the provincial elections and municipal elections, so we'll be cutting away for that. However, 3 great hours, 3 great guests. In fact, my first guest joining me tonight from Hilo in Hawaii on the Big Island is Colonel Deb Lewis. And joining me now is the good Colonel. And Colonel Deb, welcome to the X Zone.
Aloha, how are you?
Aloha, many fond memories of Hawaii. So tell me, Colonel, what's it like being... I understand you went to West Point?
I did, Rob. And before I go into that, just say some of us have had COVID too, and I just bless your heart. Staying away is so hard, and if you're only away a week, that's. I know the shots seem like they're not doing it, but it's never about not getting it. It's how severe your symptoms are, and just imagine, like you said, if you didn't have it. So, the world here, we were touched by it early. Because we lost a number of veterans in our veterans home early before the protocols were put in place and people understood a little bit more about it. Doesn't mean, like I said, you won't get it, but there were no vaccines, nothing. So we, our elderly in our veterans homes, were hit really hard. So I just want to go out to all the viewers whose family members, because people are normalizing today, but that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. And you just said the trifecta does not surprise me. Yeah. Because all the other ones are at bay. So that's kind of what we're talking about today, isn't it?
It certainly is. And something else that they were telling us during the news is that the Omicron seems not to be affected by any of the vaccinations or any of the vaccine, that it's matured and it's built its own resistance up. Wow. First of all, Colonel, thank you for your service and the service of many other men and women around the world who keep democracy and freedom for us. So thank you, ma'am. What was it like being at West Point?
I often say those things that are good for you aren't necessarily fun or enjoyable. And I would say I wouldn't go through it twice, but people have asked me, but going through it once made me the person I am today. People recognize academies as being tough environments. West Point, probably most of all of the academies, because they pride themselves on it. And I was in that first wave of women, the very first class since 1802. It had been started. And so we were a disruptor, a complete disruptor. And that, if you've ever been on the leading edge of social change, I didn't understand it at the time. I just prepared because I knew it was hard. But those first few days, we were walloped.
Really? You know, Colonel, I used to be a police officer, and when the force brought in female police officers, I was thrilled. I welcomed it because it gave, I believed, and I was proved right, that it gave a fresh perspective to a call that we were responding to, where there were both men and women. So when I hear about all the sexism that goes on, it makes no sense to me. So how did you deal with this? How did the other members of your class deal with the added stress that I guess that this put you and your fellow officers under?
Well, it certainly made us understand those who've been persecuted, for who they are, not what they do, not, for just the visual appearance of who you are. And today we have people identify with over 20 different genders. And taking away from that is those who just look at the surface, it's like a iceberg. They're only looking at the 10%, deciding they don't like what they see. And the 90% that's below, which is you're wanting to accomplish, you're never going to take advantage of, because all you can see is the surface, and it triggers your instincts. And I like to say there was a lot of that. The instincts stink. When you can't handle stress, then you're going to make really unfortunate choices and usually not get what you want. And so those first days was, you have people yelling at you. Our uniforms were, it's humorous today. It wasn't then, but they gave us these wonderful color coordinated zippers on the first day with these very heavy trousers. And, in the police force, you got heavy trousers, you need a strong zipper. And ours broke. Ours broke. The first 50% of our zippers broke, including mine. And so I was in trouble immediately. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's how I got in trouble on my first day, having to ask for a safety pin in order to hold my pants up when we swore an oath to the Constitution. That's what we do. We swear an oath in the military. We swear an oath to the Constitution, not to any person, but to the Constitution. Yeah. So that was tough. And then the hardest part for me was running. That was, you may love to run. That was not my strongest suit. I was an athlete. I rode horses. I was a swimmer, co-captain of the swim team, and competed riding my whole life. And that was not the same as running 2 miles. And then they added combat boots and weapons and guerrilla drills and all kinds of stuff, which I know you did in the police force. You had to do a lot of athletic things. But the running the distance, that was the challenge. So I had to really figure that out.
I must tell you that we didn't have backpacks like you members of the military did. And there were certainly a lot of things that we didn't have to do that you did. So my hat is off to you, ma'am.
Yeah. We're proud of everyone who wears a uniform, because they are trying to protect the world and keep us safe. Is everybody perfect? No, but we are trying our best. And without the rule of law and without the ability to respond to the bullies of this world, because that's the norm. If you look way back in history, it's been conflict all the time. And you can want to love people, but as we'll get into, I teach people how to armor up, because just because you want to share your love and kindness doesn't mean you won't get shot at, harassed, harmed in some way.
What are some of the things you learned early on that helped you not only in your military career, but life in general?
Well, let's tie it back to not the first day. I got through the first day. I fairly did it. But the second day, I had prepared and running 1.5 miles. So kind of what your abilities are. And I went in and I knew I could do 1.5 miles. I still wanted to, if you've ever run as fast as you can, as far as you can, and want to get sick and throw up. That's how I felt at 1.5 miles. And the cadet in charge very nonchalantly goes, "The run today is 2 miles." Well, you can imagine what my head was doing, because that's like 8 or 9 football fields more than what I had done in preparation. So I started to lose it, started to panic a little. There were 2 other women in my platoon. It's about a group of about 30, 40 people. And I had a new roommate, 5'8", a high jumper, and from Alabama, Decatur, Alabama. And we started off on that run, and I'm just, a little bit panicking, because I'm wondering, am I going to make it? And there was a huge pressure on women, because at that time in 1976, we didn't have any statistics on what women could do.
Mhm.
And expectations were bottom. They didn't think we could do anything. Even though many people know that women can do things, that's not what they were thinking. And so watching us run was a huge test to say the women won't cut it. You can't make it, whatever. And in the first half mile, my new roommate started dropping back. Now I'm in hyper panic because it obviously is hard. Here she's been doing high jump and being on these teams, more athletic than I had in that respect. And I was about ready to lose it. And then I looked over at the other woman in our group. Let's call her the gazelle. And I looked over at her and I had this curious expression because I looked at her and I said, what is she doing? Oh my God, she's smiling. She's enjoying this. I said, there's clearly something wrong with my perspective. And I was so glad that I had that example from Camille, because still contact with her today. She led me and inspired me and said, look, she's about my height, a little bit lighter, but I think, if she can do it, I can do it. I'm going to figure this out. And then I decided to make the worst affirmation ever, but it actually worked. So I don't recommend it for people who are trying to push past their normal limits. And that's what I was doing. And I learned that we have no idea the potential that resides within us until we actually test it and push it and find some way to go past that level. And I made that run that first day, and I made every single run that, I won't say it was pleasant. I don't say I didn't get sick before the run, knowing what was ahead, but I was able to pull out of me something I had never before. And that's what I encourage your audience when they listen to this, is that I think the percentages, we don't know. We know 5% of what we can do, but 95%, and that's probably what's more important than the 5% we know. And we'll often talk ourselves out of things that we probably shouldn't.
Colonel Deb, please stand by. We've got to take our first break. In explanation, our guest this hour is Colonel Deb Lewis. Her website is mentally-toughwomen.com. We'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm having my morning coffee.
Beautiful Mind Coffee is delicious coffee your brain will love. Made with ethically sourced 100% Arabica coffee grown in the volcanic soil of the Tolima, Colombia region, Beautiful Mind Coffee is roasted and ground in small batches to ensure each bag contains a wonderful full-bodied artisan coffee. Beautiful Mind Coffee contains herbal ingredients to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Maca root powder, green tea extract and American ginseng have all been selected for their ability to support good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older, just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. For more information on Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit us online at www.beautifulmindcafe.com. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available at amazon.ca.
Welcome back. Colonel Deb Lewis is our special guest. mentally-toughwomen.com is her website. And all right, so here we're working our way through the academy. You graduate.
Yay.
You've had to put up with the old boys club, and now you're going into the regular army. Did it get any better?
I decided to go to the Army, think of all the different services and how welcoming they might be. The Army was pretty tough. The larger Army had only just started accepting women. It used to be a separate corps, in the Army. So they were integrating right as we were exiting the academy. And then I joined the engineers, and engineering is not exactly majority women. And so those kind of came into that perfect storm where, wow. And then the running continued because I got assigned to a place that used to be called Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where you're down there. And I remember some of our runs were 5 miles and 40 minutes in sand and other things.
But wait a sec. Run 5 miles in 40 minutes. Full pack?
An 8-minute pace, not backpack. We didn't have the backpack, but the sand, if anyone's running sand, it's not the same as a flat surface. And then still at that time, running shoes were not very supportive, and I have high arches. So it was a test. Other runs with our units, that was our officer runs. The other runs with the unit were easier, but then we would get what they call the cat calls and things. And originally I was blamed for inducing the cat calls. And I'm thinking, I'm to blame for getting the cat calls? I'm just running. And I asked someone, they go, well, what did they say? And it's like, I'm not going to repeat what they said, and definitely not the tone that they said it in. And it wasn't until they had someone who in the enlisted group, I wasn't running, they ran and got cat calls. But they made me run in the back initially because they didn't want me to induce the cat calls. And it was like, so you're going to hide me in the back. So it wasn't quite as easy. But I have to say, to the credit of the people who were giving me responsibility, I was given the most amazing jobs and tasks that made it all worthwhile. I mean, I started off in a platoon where you're responsible for people 24/7. That might drive you crazy. Think of a family of 30 plus people, and you've got to be with them and knowing what's going on 24/7. That could be tough because they were young and can get into trouble. I remember one tried to run his wife over with a vehicle. Who was wife was in the military. That was later, but they did some crazy stuff. And I got to, at that first assignment, I was able to jump out of airplanes and helicopters and tailgate. I was airborne. I got to go on airborne status. I had gone to airborne school at West Point during my time there, and then got to do it there. But the Army, it just kept being a steep learning curve. And I think that that's healthy for us, because when we become complacent, we don't keep our sharpness. And if you've looked at the world today, you think it's getting any easier, Rob?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
So I wanted to be best prepared. And certainly the police force has seen that in spades, because it's always changing. Yeah. And what's acceptable here is not acceptable here. So you had to understand the larger context. I go back to the iceberg. And I have a wonderful thing. What I learned is you needed to be able to look below the surface. You needed to be able to look below the surface with love inside, so that you're not hurting yourself or hurting others. But if you, like a Polaroid, if you don't use them, you can't see below the surface. And
that's true.
You have to take that time and see, because there's always more going on.
Oh yeah, I just find my sunglasses and Deb takes hers off.
We can wear them together, Rob.
All right. Hold on. Here we go.
Let me see.
There we go.
There we go. Oh yes, you look excellent. I think mine are fun. One time I gave an entire talk forgetting that I was wearing them.
No kidding.
Oh yeah. I put them on for effect, and then I completely forgot to take them off, and they all thought it was part of my speech. So there you go. But someone told me, they said, we were fishing one time, and they looked beside him, and someone was catching fish after fish after fish. And they kept saying, well, how do you know where to fish? And then he said, really? And then he handed over his Polaroids, and they put the Polaroids on, and you didn't have that sun reflection blocking you. You could see right below the surface, and you could see all the fish. Well, that's real life. That's exactly what's happening. But people today are so short-sighted and in a rush they're not going to take that time. But if you don't take that time, what's going to happen? Maybe immediately it won't happen, but later, because you don't understand the rest of the story, you could be we're operating off a set of facts. It's facts. You're still seeing facts, but you could be making entirely wrong choices based on the facts that you have and don't take the time to find out more.
Why do you think that people don't stop to smell the roses anymore?
Oh, that is such a deep question, really.
Yeah.
It seems superficially easy, but I think of in my time, and I think your time, I had the first laptop computer when I went to Harvard Business School. You know, we had the first laptop computers, and it had 2 3.5-inch drives. One was storage, one was the software.
Yep.
And it was incredibly slow, right? And we had to be tested on it. And at West Point, we just had a calculator. I mean, before us, they had slide rule. I mean, I'm dating myself, but they had slide rules. And then I'm thinking, I'm not that old. But then we had just a calculator. And now these cadets, I feel like we were the truck drivers. And now these are on the supersonic jets. They have to be able to handle so much data, but they're not necessarily giving the social skills so that they can understand how important relationships are in everything that we want to accomplish. So when stress happens, and I'm talking unhealthy stress, everybody's telling you stress gets a bad rap. Healthy stress is the things that we do in the gym. It's the things that we want to accomplish in our life. Unhealthy stress is when we trigger our instincts and go negative and then either attack or run away or shut down. I mean, people are doing that all over the place because the reason, poor stress skills. They do not understand that they can accomplish so much more when they work with other people. And those 3 options push people away. They sever relationships. They break trust. That's my view.
So Colonel Deb, in today's society, with everything that is going on in the world today, we were talking about the trifecta of the new strains that are going to be hitting. We have the global unrest that is going on in Europe and how it's affecting the rest of the world. We have a political climate that I've never seen before.
Actually, it's been around before. It's just
really?
that with the trifecta, oh yeah, you can go back to the earliest times. Heck, the founders of our nation were, by signing one single document, were persecuted and killed. And
I understand that, and I appreciate that, ma'am. But what I'm saying is all of these combined, the economic crisis that we're in, and the housing crisis, the homelessness, the abuse, the drug abuses. How do we handle the stress, especially when we're bombarded with it day after day after day after day?
It can be very discouraging, and you can lose hope. And I would just share with you and your audience is I've been in some of the darkest places that you can go, where people are killing you, and people are struggling. But when you understand how to handle a lot of stress, like I was talking about earlier, the potential that we have within us. Have you ever been on a team or a group where you were given a tough task and you all put your heads together and that brilliance shone through? You liked working with each other. You solved the problem and then you all celebrated.
Sure.
Okay. Now imagine that the things that I'm talking about can be done on a local scale, one-on-one, but they can also be country to country because that's what we were doing. And these fundamentals, if you're choosing those 3 options I was telling you that is encouraged, fight. We've got people who fight. We got people who run away and aren't even there. They have brilliant minds, but they're not going to engage because you don't make them feel safe, or they shut down and they sit there and you think they're engaged, but they're not. I mean, that's a scourge on our whole world. They think that only 1/3 in the US are engaged. And in the world, it's only 15% of employees are engaged. 15%. Now think about that. And there's a whole at least 10% or more who are actively disengaged. That means if you're working or trying to be productive, they're discouraging you. They're doing things. But when you know how to handle stress, you're able to, it's almost like Wonder Woman in No Man's Land, or Captain America who's fighting, the enemy. You're able to bring forth that energy and work with everyone else. And the solutions usually are right in front of us. And they're not as complicated as you think. They may be complex, but they're not complicated. And it's just, when I went to Iraq, figure I had an entire volunteer team, never trained together. Okay. A 100% volunteer team taken from all over the world. 15% of them rotated monthly. Okay. We had a hail and farewell, saying hello and goodbye every week. And, oh, by the way, there were battles going on. If you looked at a map of my area, Baghdad and Al Anbar province, it was all red. It was all red because they were blowing up things. They were shooting helicopters from the sky. They were bombs going off in the city, killing my contractors, stopping my projects with the engineers. We had religious holidays. There were all kinds of disruptions that were going on. You would think that we couldn't get anything done. And yet we got a ton done. And it was amazing.
Stand by, Colonel Deb. We have to take our second break here on Exo Nation. Colonel Deb Lewis is our special guest. Her website is mentally-tough-women.com. And I, for one, appreciate the great work that you have done, Colonel. Thank you so much. And to the rest of the members of the armed forces, wherever they are, God bless them all. We'll be back after this short break. Don't go away.
Thank you.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. Colonel Deb Lewis is our special guest this hour. www.mentally-tough-women.com. Colonel, what would you say was the height or the most important part of your 34-year military career?
That's a big one. I'm smiling, one, because you still have your glasses on, and I know you wear them in interviews, those sunglasses. And the second one is I have to just comment, your whoever does your graphics or your commercials, they are brilliant.
Thank you.
They make me smile every time I'm watching them because I study that and I see how detailed they are.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think that what made me stronger, mentally tough, I didn't know the words at that time. I just knew that I could take a licking and keep on ticking, and
so should I call you now Colonel Timex?
Well, and the thing is I over my life I have been attacked over 10,000 times.
Wow.
And that's people who just are incredibly rude. That's people standing in front of you, spitting in your face, just doing the craziest stuff. And yet I'm still surprised some, because people today, I am in nonprofits. Some of your audience are in nonprofits, and you think that you won't have the drama, but we have the drama. I'm in like 8 nonprofits, and you get that. And there's constant forces trying to take you out, just try to stop you from achieving what you want. And what's happened with me is I have this bound determination. I am literally compelled. If someone's yelling at another person, most people run away. And probably they should, if they don't have the skills. And it doesn't mean I don't have it without risk, but I usually can go into a very tough situation and I have those skills to say and start asking inquiry-based questions instead of what a large part of the population does is accusatory questions. They'll come in and they assume that something's bad or wrong because it's not what I expected. If we have unmet expectations, how will you respond? If you handle stress well, you will ask inquiry-based questions like, I wonder why you did that, Rob. It's very interesting. Or they might come in accusatory, Rob, why did you do that? In tone, and it may not even be the words, it's the tone, it's the attitude. And what it does is it silences people. It shuts off their best. It keeps them from doing it. So I have a very good sense through all that time to understand the nuances and differences of that. And I also learned I'm an empath. I didn't understand what that meant, but what I can do is someone could be smiling, but I know there's something beneath the surface. And usually within less than 3 minutes or so, if they're really hurt, they will trust me quickly. I can connect quickly with people and deeply, and they will trust me enough to bring that shield down and talk about what's going on, because they're not going to fool me in doing that. And so I have loved helping people who have been in those dark places. And because I'm an engineer, some people say, oh, tell me all your problems and let's go back to how you were experiencing it. That's not me. An engineer can study something that broke and spend days and weeks and years trying to fix that, or we can focus on what is it we want and come up with something better. And that's what I love to do, is to help them, pull them out of that quicksand where they're stuck and help them move forward confidently with hope and joy. When you release someone's joy and they're smiling again when they haven't been in quite a while, it is infectious.
This is what should be taught in schools to the young people.
I'm working on it.
Wow.
I am.
Can you imagine?
All ages. I just did a retiree group. Do you think retirees are stressed? Sure, they are.
Big time.
Yeah. And people would say kids aren't stressed, but they are, especially through COVID. I won't say their childhood was robbed. I would say what's happened is they've had a new normal. And I have always found that to be even better, because you have to figure out where you're going to land now. How are you going to move forward? If you can get through the storm, it's like every day's an adventure. You just have to hold on knowing that the storm will pass. And then look around like I did that first day running and find someone who you can admire is making it, and surround yourself with people who know how to make it work, not the ones who are complaining or dragging you down like quicksand.
One thing, Colonel Deb, is that you're a very inspirational person. I can hear it in your voice. I know it by reading your bio, and just the fact that you've been in the military 34 years, you hold the rank of colonel, that means that you're an inspiration. So when you talk to people, you just don't talk to them with authority, but you talk to them to inspire. You don't talk down, you talk at. And not a lot of people do that, Colonel.
Well, what's really fun for me, Rob, is if they haven't read my bio or they know nothing of my background, they will always underestimate me. And I love that.
How can you underestimate anyone who has the rank of colonel?
Well, they may not know that. They'll just look at me and they'll say, you were a colonel? You led people in combat? You did this, you did that. No, people don't wear what they've done on their forehead. And they don't necessarily look at it from their what they look like personally. Sometimes a lot of military won't even talk about their military time. So you may never find out that, especially those like the wonderful ones who had to go off during Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad he was in World War II and he was in Korea. My dad's 96. World War II, he served on aircraft as maintenance. In Korean War, he and his classmates, class 1950, went off to war without really going to any schools to help them, and a number died. And then he was in Vietnam as well. And the time in Vietnam was horrible. And then the years since, we've been it's been constant. We've been sending people are in harm's way today. People are waiting because there are plenty of bad actors out there. And I just want to say is that everybody, I see the hero in you. I see the hero in every one of us that is, and sometimes it may be disguised like I do an exercise with, it's resting face wars, I call it. It's if people start wars just by their resting face.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you have to take your glasses off.
Okay. Hold on. All right. Glasses off. Lights. Oh.
Now, people. Oh, I know. Lights are very sensitive to me too. The thing is that our faces are what they are. It's kind of like your build that you were born with.
Okay.
But we read people's faces thinking we know what they're thinking. And so when you look at someone, we spend all this money on hair and makeup for the women and guys too now, and taking care of themselves and their hair and shaving mustache and all that. How much time do you take in the mirror looking and make sure that your face matches what you're thinking? Now, some intentionally don't want to do that, but the point is that if you've ever heard a comment like you need to smile more, or you don't take me seriously was the latest one, because I used to have my corners of my mouth turn up, but as I gotten older, they don't do that as much. So I have to work at it. So like exercises, you have to exercise your face.
Right.
And then I was speaking to someone whose corners of his mouth turn up all the time, and he's constantly accused of not taking things seriously, even if he thinks he has a resting face. He's not thinking that. Right. Wow. So when I look at you, because you have a mustache, that makes it a little harder. So I want you to look up at the camera so everyone can see. And okay, I see your resting face. And now I want you to move to a welcoming face, And sometimes that's with your eyes and alone in your mouth. So it's trying to make your mouth as if someone's smiling. And as you go, there you go. That's it. You see?
Oh,
now, in your mind, you may have been welcoming right away because you thought I was welcoming, but your face didn't match it. And if my husband has a very serious face when he's serious, when he's just thinking, people get intimidated, but then he has a laugh that disarms everybody. But the thing is that we go through this exercise, and you can put your glasses on if it's hurting.
Thank you.
But the thing is that many people get angry because they'll say, "Why are you so upset?" And they'll say, "I'm not upset." "Yes, you are. It looks like you're upset." And they're like, "But I didn't do it." That's because your face is sending a message. So you need your face to match what you're thinking.
I think I was a cop for too long, because we had to.
You had to
keep that neutral face all the time.
Yeah, you did. You did. And so, but it just depends on the circumstances. Do you want to intimidate the person, or do you want them to feel welcome? If they feel welcome, they will be open to you. If they don't feel welcome, they'll be guarded. But here's a simple one. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
If I don't take this break, my producer is not going to be very nice with me, and I don't want to get him ticked off.
Don't do that.
I'll be back on the other side of this final break here with our good guest this hour, the one and only Colonel Deb Lewis. And her website is, you got your pencils and paper ready, gang? MentallyToughWomen.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada.
Beautiful Mind Coffee is delicious coffee your brain will love. Made with ethically sourced 100% Arabica coffee grown in the volcanic soil of the Tolima, Colombia region, Beautiful Mind Coffee is roasted and ground in small batches to ensure each bag contains a wonderful full-bodied artisan coffee. Beautiful Mind Coffee contains herbal ingredients to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Maca root powder, green tea extract and American ginseng have all been selected for their ability to support good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. For more information on Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit us online at www.beautifulmindcafe.com. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available at amazon.ca.
Ta-da! We're back.
Hey.
Yeah, Colonel Deb Lewis is our special guest, mentally-toughwomen.com. First of all, Colonel, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show. I love what you do. And once again, thank you for your service and the other great members of the military, wherever they are, making sure that we are kept safe 7/24, 365. God bless you all. Everything starts at the beginning, Colonel. Your march, your run, your career at West Point, your career in the Army. Where can people start in order to use what they can to get that inner you? Where do they start in their life? Do they just have to say, listen, I can do it? And just be that little train that says, I think I can, I think I can, I know I can, I know I can.
Well, they have to be self-aware. And I would say the number one place that I have found where people go off the rails, people are well-intentioned, people are talented. And really, when you're around them at their best, don't you just love being with them? You know, that they're happy and they're productive and they can contribute and the ideas come all everywhere. When you're unhappy, and where we detect that first is in your breathing. Your breathing is the place where you start going off. And unless you're Tom Cruise or Kate Winslet at 3.5 minutes, what happens if you stop breathing? Because that's what people do under stress. Extreme stress is another area I specialize in. You die or you pass out. Apparently those two can go to like 5 minutes or more. It's just pretty impressive.
Wow.
But Houdini probably did much more than that. Anyway, but if you're not like that, it's at that beginning when you start feeling that, what you're doing to your body is throwing yourself into survival mode thinking. And survival mode thinking are the three we talked about: fight, flight, shut down. You turn off, you're turning off the light inside of you. And so what you want to do is you want to use our beautifully engineered bodies to their optimal level. And there's a lot of study on this, so you can do it for many ways. But I'm an engineer, remember? I like to do things fast. So I have a 10-second reset. So what you want to do, just like with your phone, what do you do with your phone when it starts acting up?
Reset.
Exactly. And so I call it the waterfall method. It's 10-second reset. And we start off with the beautiful air that we have. As babies, we used our diaphragm 100%. As adults, 50% of us think we can get by with less. What is that doing to your brain? It's restricting the oxygen to our brains and clouding our thinking and our wisdom, which is, I have a helmet, you have the shield, I have a helmet that protects your wisdom. We want to protect our wisdom, and we want to do it as an engineer most effectively. And so what we do is we bring in the air through our nose, which also makes it easy for you as a talk show host. You could talk all day. Breathe in through your nose and talk as you're breathing out. Yeah. Anyone who wants to present, that's the key. You want to talk, and you don't have to go big breaths. You've got air in your lungs, but you want to do that. And it also moistens your vocal cords so that you don't dry. If people have lost their voice or get a sore throat, it's because they're mouth breathers, because 50% are also mouth breathers. So they're not using the full oxygen in their diaphragm and their mouth breathers. So we want to breathe in through our nose. And what do we know about waterfalls? You've seen them on Maui and other places that you visited. The power of water has the ability to flush out all that crap that's inside of us and cleanse us of whatever toxic thoughts that we have, or something someone did 15 years ago, or something like that, right? And so I think about, if you breathe in through your nose 3 seconds, and then you breathe out with your mouth and you exaggerate, you breathe out 7 seconds. Now you have to pace yourself, because some people run out of air at about 5 seconds, but you want to pace yourself. And when you get really good at this exercise, you will cleanse whatever's starting to restrict your breathing, whatever bad things you're clouding, because we have a river of thoughts in our heads. And so we're plucking out what we want to focus on. And if you don't cleanse that garbage out of you, you're going to be focused on things that you don't want and attracting that, as opposed to focusing on what you want. So do you want to try it? I can count. I can't breathe at the same time, but help our audience exaggerate breathing in through your nose, the 3 seconds, breathing out through your mouth, like that for 7.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Set, go. In through your nose. 1, 2, 3. Out with your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yep.
Now, when you get really good at this, it takes more. You don't have to close your eyes. You can do it driving. I do it like if you're late. Have you ever been late to something?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And you start, you start winding yourself. Oh my gosh, I didn't get there. You have to stop your body. You have to reset, just like you're in a race. We know how to do this for athletics. Why don't we do it for the rest of our lives, all the other aspects? And so 3 seconds in, 7 seconds out, that will flush your system of that and reset you, just like your phone or other things, so you can get going. So that's my tip.
Colonel, we've got about 2 minutes left. What are your final thoughts for the X Zone Nation tonight, ma'am?
Well, I just would love to say thank you first for having me here, Rob. It has been a delightful pleasure. You have so much fun on this show. And I think that we have many great people who have been on it or listening to it. And what I just want to say is, the better you get at handling stress about the things that we talked about, everyone has greater success. So if you don't like what's going on, have unmet expectations, get better. It's your responsibility to get better at handling stress, because when you do, all the problems will fall away.
Let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and where they can buy your books. Oh,
yes. Thank you. Yes, they can go onto my website, as you talked about, mentallytoughwomen.com. They can also link with me on LinkedIn. Just look up Deb Lewis, Hawaii. You'll find me, or Colonel Deb. And I look forward. They can find my book. This is the book. This is where we're taking people from being upset and angry to working well together, which is the book, Why is Pono, if you know the word from Hawaiian, why is Pono not Pono today? A lot of people out there are not happy and doing well. And then you got to have people like little Kuleana here, who has the responsibility to engage us and come up with creative and loving ways to bring us back to our best.
Colonel Deb, thank you very much. Pleasure talking to you. And I do hope that we have the pleasure of speaking to you again in the future.
Thank you, Rob. Look forward to it.
Good night, Colonel. Exonation, my guest this hour has been Colonel Deb Lewis. Her website is www.mentallytoughwomen.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break, which brings us to the top of the hour. We're going to be talking about demons. We're going to be talking about the Nephilim. We're going to be talking about the Bible. That's coming up next here in the X Zone with yours truly from our broadcast center in Hamilton. No, we haven't been there for a while, Rob. In St. Catharines, Ontario. By the way, if you're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, we have some great shows for you there on the radio. Let me see. It's at 11 o'clock. We have Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman. His guest is Suzanne Clores, followed by, well, here we are, followed by Colonel Kevin Randall. and he's going to be talking to Colonel Richard Weaver, the Colonel versus the Colonel. That's going to be a good conversation about UFOs. And the list goes on and on and on. Visit www.xzbn.net for all the programming available for you 24/7, 365. I'll be back at the top of the hour, so whatever you do, don't go away.